in Exeter, working with a group of primary school governors. We're going to watch and discuss two programmes. The first is about the new School Improvement Partners, and as we know, that's part of the Department for Education and Skills' new relationship with schools. The second, however, is an old perennial, target setting, and the role of the governing body in that. So let's go meet the governors.
I'm Debbie Steen. I'm Parent Governor at Weybridge Community Primary School. I specialise in the area of PHSE and citizenship.
I'm Rupert Butler. I'm a Community Governor at the Axminster Community Primary School.
My name's Jackie Andrews. I'm a Parent Governor at Brixington Community Nursery and Primary School. We're a recently amalgamated school, used to be an infants and a junior, and I've been on the Board of Governors since we amalgamated about 12 months ago.
I'm John Davey, and I've now been Chair of Governors at Lara Green Primary School in Plymouth for 5 years.
The first programme I'm showing is about School Improvement Partners, SIPs, and I streamed it from the Teachers TV website. The programme makers sent Nick Smith, the deputy head from a secondary school in Bridgwater, to find out about the new scheme in West Sussex where it was piloted. Nick visits two schools to speak to the head teachers about their experiences. A primary where he hears about the difference between the LEA link advisor and the SIP, and a secondary where he asks the head how important it is for a SIP to have headship experience.
In my own position here, I have valued greatly that Diane has been a head teacher, because the advice and support and challenge that she's been able to give has been invaluable.
Nick's main concern is what would happen if a SIP and a head disagree, and he seeks an answer to this from Adrian Percival, the man in charge of the national rollout of the scheme.
To be honest, I think given that we're dealing with a highly credible, highly experienced, skilled workforce who've been through a national accreditation and are nationally quality assured, that really, for the most part, we're expecting that they would be right, and that under those circumstances, we would expect that that appropriately challenging discussion would result in a way forward for the school.
Finally, the producers asked Nick what his thoughts were on the initiative after his trip to West Sussex.
I still have reservations about what happens when the head and the partner fundamentally disagree about something, but the scheme's definitely going to happen. All heads will have school improvement partners, and I just think we need to go with it and see how it pans out.
So as governors, what do we think about the programme?
I have the same reservations. It seems to me that the same person is changing by switching from being the advisor to being the SIP. But the difference is that he has authority, being, as it were, comforted by the knowledge that the DFES and the county won't jolly well sack him if there's a row between him and the head teacher he's coming to see. He's got authority, and that's a big difference. It seems to me that what we've seen in the film here, and what I suspect already, is that the school improvement partner will change from being that advisor that we knew last year into being a sort of Soviet-style commissar. Now, a sensible commissar, even in Russia, would make the point of trying to work with the commanding figure that he has to check. But on the other hand, doesn't have to. And we saw at the very end where the sort of the DFES man said, well, give us a problem and we're going to side with the SIP against the head teacher.
Well, shock and awe from Rupert there. If everything that Rupert's just said were on the negative side were to prove to be the case, then clearly I think we might have rather a lot to be worried about. My only, perhaps rather naive and superficial response was to think, oh goody, somebody else who from the sort of professional sector to help us. Certainly under the old system where we had the, like for instance, we had the Cambridge Educational Associates guy in to help with the head teacher's performance management. The ones we had, I had experience of two of them, was that they were very, very helpful people. I just sort of assumed from watching the film that the school improvement partner would be like, almost like an upgraded version of that. And I thought, well, good, that sounds okay.
I must say I like the idea of another professional person actually coming into the school and being able to advise. But from what Rupert said, it does worry me a bit that this particular individual is going to have sort of the overall control and the last say on matters, which personally I think the governing body and the head teacher should have priority to take those decisions, and not someone who's not sort of directly involved with the school on a day-to-day basis.
I know one of my concerns is how cosy will the relationship appear to be, and how will it affect the strategic role of a governing body needing objective information about its school.
If they're actually going to use current heads to use them as the school improvement partner, where is all this extra time for these heads going to come from? Because, I mean, from my understanding, you know, they work jolly hard now trying to fit in all the extra government policies and papers and everything else that gets piled down onto them. Where would this extra time come from?
I think to go to the point, first of all, on the sort of release of time, I think we've got to allow our head teachers to think, if this is something I want to do, they will be doing it for good reasons that will also benefit their schools. You know, I felt we're in the state as governors not being able to answer some of the questions we've got in our mind from what we saw in the programme. So what did you get out of the programme, and has it left you with any thoughts or questions you'd like to share?
It was a very thought-provoking programme. It opened a can of worms and has got a lot of unanswered questions that need to be looked into and certainly taken back and talked over with the head teacher.
I didn't think that the programme made it particularly clear as to how much time the new SIP is actually going to spend at the school. Is it going to be sort of a full-time role? Is it just going to be a termly role? I think it would be interesting to just clarify how much time this extra person is going to be spending at the school in an advisory role.
I'm comforted that we can say to ourselves that the head teacher might do it, because head teachers working on each other can only be productive, it seems to me. Mostly they'll be working to get a better result for both parties, and I like that. I'll certainly be asking my head teacher about it, and I'm quite sure he's in the majority of head teachers that will just make it work. You know, like everything else they throw at us from above, you know, he just jolly well makes it work.
The second programme, called Setting Targets, shows how one Bristol primary school has addressed lack of parental involvement by founding a parent-teacher association and setting up a parents' room.
We got together a group of parents and became the PTFA, which is the Parents, Teachers and Friends of Gay Elm School. And I think we've been running now for about 4 years. And, you know, we organise fundraising groups like Halloween discos, barbecues, Christmas discos, bazaars, book sales and things.
Jackie believes that the Parents' Room is already fostering a sense of involvement with the school.
It was really good because I met other parents that perhaps you don't talk to in the playground because you're so busy dropping the kids off and going home. So coming into the Parents' Room, you get to meet a lot more. You talk, you help run Christmas fairs, you're more of the school environment, you're not just running in and out.
Well, I was particularly interested in the aspect of parent involvement in primary schools, this is, of course, because we've always felt that this is one of the most difficult areas. Actually getting your parents seriously involved in the school is something that we've torn our hair out over, well, you can see. We are aiming now at the extended school model. And we've got to have the parents more involved. And our relatively new head, who's been in post just coming up to 2 years, is very, very keen on this. And he wants to start a parents' forum.
So in your school, has the governing body set a target for this, and are there actions underneath that target?
Currently, it is one of the head teachers' targets to get this parent forum off the ground.
Obviously, you know, watch the programme, and you've identified very clearly with that. Yes, so that's a target which is specific to your school. So it's not one of the statutory targets. That's interesting. So you get this whole range of targets.
We set ourselves a target of 30% 5A to C grades, and right until the May before the exams, we were uncertain that we would reach those targets. We used the data at individual pupil level to work out which pupils were off their targets and which ones were on it. And for the pupils that were off target, we put in a very structured mentoring, coaching and support programme, bespoke to each individual pupil. When we got the results back in September, we were delighted to have achieved 32%, which was greater than expectation.
The targets have to be achievable targets. They have to be rigorous to make sure they're going to work. staff and pupils have to understand what the targets are so they can be achieved. And also, because I live in the community, I understand the sort of levels of achievement in this area, so it's no point in setting an unrealistic target because we'll never achieve it.
There are 4 sets of estimates, A, B, C and D.
How far are the pupil numbers, Maurice?
Pardon?
How far out are the pupil numbers, you say? There were some discrepancies? Is that fairly accurate?
That's fairly accurate.
So how about the two of you that are newer governors? Anything you can tell us about maybe what your school's doing in setting its targets?
Yeah, our head teacher, obviously because we were a recently amalgamated school, it's very challenging times for all of us, very exciting. And she seems to think that because the sort of SATs results don't quite hit the benchmarks that we were anticipating, she wants to try and secure extra funding to help pupils that are just underachieving, rather than the sort of one-to-one help that's already available for sort of special needs children. She thinks it's very important that the just underachievers are the ones that get the help, because then that will really push all of our targets back up to what we want them to be. So that's one of our main challenges really for the next 12 months.
That's good. So here we've got probably targets in literacy, numeracy, the statutory targets. So really we have the strategic overview and the head would have the professional view about where to target that support. And we saw the secondary school example where they had targeted a certain band of children or individual children, as we saw, and your head's decided to take a band of children to target the work there.
It's always on the head teacher's report, sort of how the monitoring is going and what our current targets are, and she's sort of got a rolling development plan which she's got also set up on the computer, which she can just amend as and when she needs to.
We're not the professionals, we're not the teachers, we can't be the judges of what necessarily a target should be, but a target can be explained to us in great detail and we can see that and we can monitor it and be responsible, perhaps asking awkward questions if that becomes necessary. If we see that perhaps targets aren't being met, at least say, well, can you tell us why? You know, and we do all of that.
Ofsted has often picked that up about governing bodies, that they're not challenging, they're not asking the questions, and even on the programme they did mention some of the questions, asking questions about how challenging are the targets, what evidence, that's what the governor said, what evidence to his head teacher, what evidence have you got to say that this target is going to be challenging? And so I think there are some very good lay questions that we can ask, especially in the statutory target setting, to ensure that we're convinced that the targets are challenging targets. What do you think you got out of that programme? What might you be taking back to the school?
I'm happy with the way that our school is setting and maintaining and keeping on top of the target. We've got a super, head teacher who implements everybody with head teachers' reports on a regular basis.
I'm always bothered in the target setting that we have to write them down in proper speak language, and I think we can write a new Bible on the basis of that and still not get to a proper conclusion. I'm afraid written objectives are a big difficulty even for us.
I feel reasonably confident about the target setting that we do in our school and the manner in which we handle it. As I said earlier on, we have this bit of a thing about wanting to get our parents more involved because they're that one section of the community that I think we need to get on board more for the extended school model that we're moving into. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with it.
So thank you for that. Thank you for the variety of comments. Your ideas have been really stimulating. To view the programmes we've watched here, go to the Teachers TV website where they can be downloaded. You can then watch them at home or to aid discussions with other governors.